welcome to Jim's EV Adventures. Today I'm Jim. Everybody seems to be talking about the anti-EV provisions of the big, beautiful bill that Trump is planning on signing here soon. It's been through Congress. Those provisions are pretty egregious, I'll have to agree, and they are very hateful. But there's more legislation lurking out there that could be coming your way. And that's what I'm going to talk about here today. This new legislation may sound harmless and even reasonable when you take on the title, the Fair Sharing of Highways and Roads for Electric Vehicles Act, or the Fair Share Act. It almost sounds like common sense. I mean, who wouldn't want everyone to pay their fair share? Democrats scream that mantra every time they see a billionaire flying around in their private jet. Republicans only use that phrase when it's conveniently supporting something that they are protecting, like big oil. But behind the friendly name lies something entirely sinister, a targeted attempt to punish EV drivers, discourage EV adoption, and more importantly, protect gasoline revenues for the fossil fuel industry. This bill is Senate Bill 536. It was introduced in February of 2025 by Senator Deb Fischer, a Republican from Nebraska. It's not about fairness. It's about fear. Fear that the shift to electric vehicles is accelerating. Fear that gas tax revenues are shrinking. And fear that the oil and gas industry might lose its grip on America's transportation infrastructure and their ability to fund leaders like Deb Fischer. Let's unpack what this bill really does and who it's designed to benefit and who is helping to push this anti-EV agenda with tactics that we've all seen before in the past. First, let's go into the basics of this bill. Here we go. So the basics of this bill, Senate Bill 536, as introduced by Deb Fischer, Republican, on February 12, 2025, is formally titled the Fair Sharing of Highways and Roads for Electric Vehicle Act. And it sounds pretty benign on the surface, but let's dig in. It's actually been referred to the Senate Committee on Finance, where bills about taxes, infrastructure funding, and financial policy are reviewed. But here's the core idea of this bill. It forces the Treasury Department to implement a nationwide fee system on electric vehicles. That's right, a federal EV tax. We've gone from EV tax savings for owners like myself getting to keep our own tax money to a federal tax that punishes EV owners with a large sum of money. And it probably will go on further than that. The logic behind the bill is this. Because EVs don't use gasoline, which is a good thing, they don't pay into the Federal Highway Trust Fund, which is funded by the 18.4 cent per gallon federal gas tax. But let's do some basic math first before we go on. The typical driver in the U.S. drives about 13,596 miles per year. The average mile per gallon for all gasoline vehicles in the United States is 25 miles per gallon. This means the average citizen driving a car will only use 544 gallons of gasoline and only pay about $100 to the Highway Trust Fund through these taxes. But the fair share tax is punitive. It's a $1,000 per EV tax on top of what's in the big, beautiful bill. Specifically, this bill says there is hereby imposed a tax equal to $1,000 on each electric vehicle sold by the manufacturer, producer, or importer thereof. Nice legal speak, by the way. And I wonder where they got that from, because half of them don't know what legal is. So Senator Fischer and the Republicans want to impose a $1,000 tax on every EV sold in the USA at the production or import level. And don't think you're going to get away with changing your gas-powered car into an EV, because it also has a $550 tax to every battery module sold that could be used in an EV. So they're even going after EV conversions. Translation, they do not want EVs to become the new normal. Now let's look at what is wrong with this bill. Let's be very clear. Yes, we do need to figure out a long-term way to fund the infrastructure, as gas consumption will naturally drop. And there's not a thing Deb Fischer or the Republicans are going to do about that, because that wave is already building and it's coming. But this bill doesn't solve the problem fairly. It shifts the burden onto EV owners and drivers while letting the real culprits off the hook. Here is why Senate Bill 536 is deeply flawed. Number one, EVs already pay taxes. Every EV owner pays state registration fees, many of which already include EV-specific surcharges, as high as $200 per year in states like Georgia and Texas. And that's only going to go up as far as I can see. EV owners still pay road use taxes indirectly. When you charge your EV at a public station, you pay local taxes, utility surcharges, and grid usage fees, all of which support infrastructure in your area. Gas taxes aren't covering the roads anymore anyway. That's a very important thing for everyone to understand. Even with internal combustion engine vehicles, the Highway Trust Fund has been in deficit for over a decade. Congress has bailed it out with over $150 billion from general tax revenues. So punishing EV owners isn't going to solve your problem. Smart management of the money will. Number four, the bill only targets EVs. There's no mention of hybrids, no mention of plug-in hybrid electric vehicles, or even the venerable hydrogen vehicles, which so many people tend to tout. It's a one-sided attack dressed up as fiscal responsibility. That's all it is. Number five, this opens the door to double taxation. If states already charge annual EV fees and the federal government starts charging a second fee, that's stacked taxation, and it is unconstitutional, period. There's not a legal scholar alive that will tell you that this is a legal way to gather taxes. Now that we know what this bill is, ask yourself one thing: where did this bill come from? And haven't we seen something like this before? Let's take a look. Yes, we have seen this before. It all played out for us in the 1950s, 1960s, 1970s, and even into the 1980s. It's the same playbook that's been used in the past. We know that this big oil playbook isn't new, and we shouldn't be surprised. Ask yourself, where have we seen these kinds of misleading bills based on false information in the past? Where have you seen this level of influence peddling in our Congress in the past? Where are these lobbyists coming from? Those three questions are extremely important to understand. All of this has a familiar look and feel to those of us who've lived through this in our lifetimes. We have all seen this before. And where, you might ask? With big tobacco. For decades, the tobacco industry funded misleading research, hid the true health risks of smoking, created marketing campaigns that made cigarettes look cool and harmless, and lobbied Congress relentlessly to avoid accountability. They weren't protecting freedom. They were protecting profits. And now look at what big oil is doing today. They fund disinformation campaigns about EVs and climate change. They sponsor grassroots groups pushing anti-EV propaganda. They donate millions to political candidates like Senator Fischer. and push bills like Senate 536 to punish people for choosing clean energy. Heck, they probably even wrote this bill and sent it to Senator Fisher. We will never know because these secret backroom deals are made under the cover of darkness. They're using the same playbook that Big Tobacco used. Sow fear, spread uncertainty, cast doubt. In other words, make up FUD. Fear, uncertainty, and doubt. They delay progress to protect profit margins. FUD is fun for these lunatics. It keeps them in business. And they're getting help from the same kinds of firms that worked with Big Tobacco in the past. Let's look at some of the legal firms. Shook, Hardy, and Bacon LLP, key defenders of Big Tobacco, now representing fossil fuel interests. Paul, Weiss, Rifkin, Wharton, and Garrison LLP, once defended Philip Morris, now representing ExxonMobil. Gibson, Dunn, and Crutcher LLP represent Chevron and many other large corporations. And it's not just the legal firms, it's the PR firms. Edelman worked with both Big Tobacco and Big Oil to shape public opinion. And the Weinberg Group supported industry-friendly research and narratives, and they're still pushing that FUD out there for everybody to see. These firms are professionals at delaying accountability, spreading FUD, if you will, while maximizing industry profits for their clients. Follow the money. Follow the money. Follow the money. I'm going to say this again. This bill isn't about fairness, it's about sabotage. While everybody has their attention focused on the losses in the big, beautiful bill, this legislation is sneaking its way through our hallowed halls of Congress. It's a desperate move to keep gasoline in charge of American transportation, even as the world moves forward. We don't need new EV taxes. We need smarter funding systems that reflect how all vehicles use our roads. EVs, gas, hybrid, and everything in between. We need a conversation that's honest, not fueled by campaign donations and big oil fear-mongering. So what can you do? Call your senators, call your representatives. Tell them you see through the fair sharing smokescreen. Tell them you won't stand for more oil-funded lies in your laws. Tell them you're not interested in reliving the tobacco wars, only this time with tailpipe emissions instead of secondhand smoke. I'm going to put links to the U.S. House of Representatives and the U.S. Senate below in the description, so you can pick that and then go find your representative to basically pummel their email inboxes. The time to act is now, because the truth doesn't come from a gas pump or a lobbyist. It comes from people like you and people like me. People who know that a better way forward is not just possible, it's already here. Thanks for stopping by. I hope to see you out there or somewhere along that route from point A to point B. Take it easy, everybody. Drive electric and don't back down from the big oil bullies who are pushing their way through our system of government. See you all real soon.